Uh, so we'll go ahead and get started. Like in terms of today, in terms of our objectives, there's four things at a high level that we're going to be covering, which is that of being more strategic with that of our website design. We're going to be talking about the significance and the importance of conversion rate and how we master that. We'll be talking about user experience. In other words, it's not about us. And I just mentioned this a few minutes ago in terms of this webinar. It's not about me. It's about each and every single one of you. And we want to ensure that each and every single one of you are getting the most out of this. And then also based on data, we want to leverage those insights to move forward and to make improvements to our company's website. Today, we're specifically focused on that of our website. Here's the one thing though. I really want to ensure, like my personal goal for each and every single one of you is to have at least one, if not two or three actionable insights that whether you do the website design or the marketing for your group, or you have a third party that or others that do, you can share these insights specifically with them. This webinar, as you probably all know, is in fact being recorded, and we will ensure that each and every single one of you get a copy of the recording. If you would like to have that of a copy of the slides, we would be happy to provide that to you. Send an email to me today. And as a matter of fact, even though I won't be checking my email right now, you're welcome to send me an email right now. My email is dmorgan@sd.marketing. Once again, dmorgan@sd.marketing. If you'd like that. And Zoe on my team will be able to help get that over to you right away at the conclusion of today's session. So one thing, I shared a little bit about myself, so I won't get into too much detail. The one big thing is, if I am not connected with each and every single one of you, please scan this QR code. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I've muted my notifications because I get distracted very easily, but I will gladly accept each and every single one of you. If you wouldn't mind, in the personalized invite, reference webinar or the fact that you're here, and I'll gladly accept each and every single one of you. And I look forward to engaging on LinkedIn, and of course, more importantly, in person at an upcoming event. One thing I just want to quickly mention about our group is we are a full service marketing agency for the industry. We only work with non-competitors. And on the dealer integrator side, that's geographically, and on the vendor side, so whether you're a manufacturer or that of a service provider, we don't work with direct competitors. So based on that subcategory perspective. So a little later on in the session, I'll have a slide with our Director of Business Development, Paul Granado, and we'll have a QR code to be able to get to his calendar so that we can meet and discuss that of your marketing needs. So enough about me. And once again, it's all about you. So, it's interesting. And as I'm thinking about this, I feel like I just did the side eye right now. I was speaking with my wife and my daughter over this holiday weekend as I was doing some final prep for today's session. And I was asking them a little about this young man or young lady. Maybe I should have determined as to whether. Anyway, neither here nor there. And my daughter, excuse me, who she's 11, going on 16, is like schooling me on the meme of the side eye and all this other thing. And here's the thing, right? If like we're all being honest, including ourselves, because I feel like sometimes we're the plumber with leaky faucets at our home, if that makes sense. This is to me like how I feel when someone asks me if my website's fully optimized, and I'm not gonna. Well, you know what? Listen, we're all in our safe zone here. So if you feel the same way when someone asks you if your website's fully optimized, in the chat, please type me, and I'm going to be the very first one to type me in all caps. If that makes sense. And I appreciate, honestly, everyone being honest. And look, this is not here for us to shame each other or what have you. Look, if we're at 99%, we need to be striving for 100%. If we're at 100%, how do we maintain that 100%? Because keep in mind, each and every single one of our competitors, thank you. I really appreciate, oh, well, okay. So what does this mean? So being that we've got a ton of stuff to cover, let me make sure I'm understanding your question. What does this mean? So the question is if someone were to ask me, is our website sd.marketing fully optimized? I'm gonna either A, say no, well, I just said me, or no right now. It's not fully, it can always be better, but it's like, I know it's something I need to do, but it's like life gets in the way. And that's the whole point of today. So hopefully, Jerry, that helps to answer your question. I mean, here's the thing. when we take into consideration what are our biggest like marketing challenges, what are our biggest challenges when it comes to that of our website, keep in mind one of it is time. Time is our worst enemy. And it's like every moment that passes is a moment that we're never going to get back. And by the way, not to get into life lessons, but that goes beyond marketing. And I'm speaking mostly to the individual that these 10 figures are pointing at. The other big thing is resources, whether it's resources with time, whether it's resources of knowledge, whether it's personnel capital and things in this regard. And the key here is sessions like today. And my good friend, and I've not taken a look at all of the live attendees that are here, but my good friend John Loud, one of his famous quotes is all about R&D, and we're not talking about research and development, it's about rip off and duplicate. And by the way, you all are welcome to R&D this session and rip off and duplicate any of the insights that come from today's session. So the key here is to leverage not just our knowledge and expertise, but to work with that of our network and things in that regard. Because of course, I've heard the old adage of like your net worth is based on your network, and you can quote me on that. So here's the good news. With what we're going to be talking about today more specifically, when we have an effective online presence, when we have an effective website, the good news is your website can help us as being a security company help connect not just with our new prospects to win business, but even, by the way, sometimes remember, our best prospect can be our existing customer. So keep all these things in mind. And my goal is for each of you at the end of today's session to be jumping for joy. Like my good friend here, I've not seen him in a while because my kids are a little older now. But this used to be one of my good friends here, and I used to be able to recite many of the things that he used to say. But anyhow, moving forward. So in terms of that of an online presence, I'd like to identify and dig a little deeper into 7 things that a strong online presence is going to help with. And we'll start here with the top. It's allowing your customers to do research on you, because keep in mind, and I'm not saying, by the way, all of us that are here live or watching this on demand, because keep in mind, we may not be like a Yelper. We may not go to Google when we get referred to someone. We may not do this. We may not do that. But keep in mind, many of our prospects do. And the key here is when someone, even if someone's referred to you by a trusted source, what is your website saying about you? What are all of your social properties? What is Google saying about you? I know we're focused on our website today, but it's really important to make sure that we are in good shape in terms of this regard. What the strong online presence also helps with is that of credibility and trust. Because keep in mind, whether it's for my home, whether it's for my business, not just us that are not just us that are looking to do this for our customers, but our customers are always busy. Think about it. Every time you're spending times with friends, family, colleagues, how are you doing? It's like, I'm great. I'm super busy. And not that we're going to be talking about today about how to maximize and make more efficiencies with your time. But the key here is like turning that back to this. It is really important to ensure that when someone goes to that of your online presence, you have key established credibility and trust. We're going to be talking about that a little more in detail here in just a moment. Keep in mind, like, obviously, I'm going to state the obvious, but it's like we're not fully awake 24/7. Now, mind you, many of us, I shouldn't say, those of us that have installation monitoring centers and wholesale monitoring centers, clearly, we're available 24/7 and we're open 24/7. But the strong online presence allows for us to be present and to put our best foot moving forward when our prospects and customers are ready to buy, regardless as to geographically where they are and what time of the day it is. In terms of our competition, a strong online presence allows us to position ourselves well against that of our competition. And that's really, really important. And remember, it's not about us speaking negatively about that. It's all about us focusing on our strengths and what our value prop is to that of our prospects. It allows us to engage with our customers. Because remember, it's not just about, our websites are not just about us bringing in new leads from new prospects. It's also all about allowing our existing customers to engage with us very, very easily. Analytics and insights, it's like what you don't measure, you don't put attention to. It's like leveraging, and we'll spend some time on all of these items, by the way. We're going to be spending some more time on this today. But in terms of the analytics and insights, it gives us data. So we know exactly how many users are on our website. If you log into Google Analytics right now, it'll let us know real time who is on our website, where are they based, not necessarily obviously by name or by by company, although there are actually tools for that. But that's a conversation for one of our other master classes. And then the key here is in terms of our marketing, like a strong online presence really helps us to have a cost-effective marketing because we're able to measure this. And what gets measured is what's going to help us. So in terms of getting started, right, as we get this ball rolling, we need to understand who are our target audience. And in light of us being interactive, a question for everyone here, I would imagine, and I'll take a look at the attendees here in just a moment, and I do see that we have all different groups represented here in terms of dealers, integrators, vendors, etc. So if you all wouldn't mind helping me in terms of the groups that you work with, and I say this just so I can be a little more personable and be more specific with some of the examples that are not going to necessarily be on these slides, and I can expand upon that. In the chat, type in Resi, R-E-S-I, if you only work with residential customers. If you work with commercial end users, type in B-I-Z for biz. And if you work with both, type both. And if you're a vendor or manufacturer, if you wouldn't mind typing in channel, because you're working with dealers and integrators. And awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Most are going to be both. Got it. Awesome. Okay, perfect. So I'll make sure that as I'm speaking about this, I'll make sure that it seems like most of us are going to be biz. I don't think that I saw anyone that's strictly resi. We will reference some resi things, but I want to make sure I'm focused on biz. And for those of us that work with the channel, I'll make sure that I'm using some examples that will help you as well. So, but keep in mind, here's the thing. If, let's just say, hypothetically, for a residential end user or for a commercial end user, we have that same piece of hardware that's being installed in their home or business. I'm going to ask you a silly question that I'm going to wave, like, would we market that the same way? No. Right? And here's why, because it's all about me. And I don't mean me literally, but meaning it's all about your customer, and meaning I've got my hat of your customer on. It's all about me. I mean, I care about me because, remember, we now have the attention span that's less than that of the goldfish. So ensure that you understand, like, as you're mapping out your website, or if you're taking a step back and you're analyzing your website, look at it from your customer's perspective. And what this equals is perhaps you're a security company that installs with resi and commercial and SMB. Is your website speaking to all of them? Think about your revenue and the quantity of end users that you have. If you're mostly commercial, let's say you're 90% commercial and you're 10% resi, would it make sense when you land on your homepage for it to be mostly about residential? No. Like, put close attention to these things. Like, if most of your business is commercial, ensure that even on the navigation, commercial is going to be first, because we're taught from a young age to read from the top, go left to right, left to right. Make sure that we're being very methodical about these things. If we are selling to the channel, meaning we are a vendor, whether we're service or commercial based, look at it from your perspective. Like, some vendors are really looking to generate end user demand generation, even though they're selling through the channel, and that's okay. However, obviously, we don't want to have any channel conflicts and all the sales go through the channel. Is your website speaking to the end user? Do you have a section that is speaking to that of your dealer channel and learning about the value prop about working with you and things in that regard? Like, think about these things. This is really, really important. In terms of that, of your website strategy, it's important to always begin with the end in mind. Do you have a clear strategy? I'll give you an example. And I'm not going to, in most of these examples, I'm not going to name names out of respect for the groups. And obviously I will not name, or I will not reference any information that's secret or what have you, or I'm not able to share. But it's interesting. One of the recent groups that we started working with, it was interesting. They shared with us about how, sure, they're interested in new prospects, but really they would like this 80-20 principle, meaning 80% of our activity focused on, like the lion's share of the activity, they want it focused on their existing customer to be able to cross-sell, upsell, make sure that they're keeping stickier customers, make sure that we're communicating with them. I would imagine on most other ends of the spectrum, it's going to be the other way. Whereas, look, sure, we want to obviously make sure we're minimizing our attrition and things in that regard, but we also want to make sure we're bringing in new prospects, new groups that don't work with us. So it's important to understand, what is our strategy? What are we looking to achieve? Things in this regard. I know we've had a few individuals that have just joined us in the last minute or two. So just as a quick recap, today we're talking about, once again, our website masterclass. This chat, thanks to each and every single one of you, has been absolutely on fire. Thank you. Today is meant to be very interactive. So for those of you that have just joined us, feel free to please introduce yourself if you feel comfortable, like your name, your company, and what area, what part of the country you're in. And also, I'll be asking a few questions over these next few minutes, and I'd love for this to be interactive so we can learn from each other. So the other thing is the strategy in terms of our website. We want to make sure that our goals are aligning with the strategy and vice versa. It's like, for example, generally speaking, your marketing strategy is based on what your sales strategy is. And what the whole point here is, with that sales, so to speak, or the sales of your boat as a metaphor, marketing is meant to be like a wind for those sales, if that makes sense, to help propel it forward. It's important to make sure that we have our content that's like organized so that we have a great user experience. And I'm not just talking about that of the look and feel. I'm talking about making sure that, like, because remember, we have the attention span that's less than the goldfish. We've got to make sure that we're finding that right away, and it's crystal clear as to what you do and how you can help me being your customer. And we want to make sure, because many of us service, remember, most of us here in the chat reference the fact that we work with both. We work with both residential and commercial end users. So we've got to make sure that we're speaking to the needs of both of them. We want to make sure that we want to make sure as we're mapping out the site with this process, it's important to make sure that before we get to the fancy part of the design, creating the content, we've got to have a roadmap and a sitemap. And by the way, I purposely updated this so that, like, in a few minutes, we're going to actually be walking through a super sitemap, so to speak. I'm going to walk through each and every single one of the components. And that's where you're going to want to make sure you're taking some extra, some additional notes and things in that regard. So we'll be walking you through that. But we also want to make sure that, see, the sitemap is meant for your users, like meaning your website users, like your prospects, customers. But it's also super important for that of search engine optimization as well. And the reason being is, first of all, we don't want to have everything all in one page and just have a super long scroll, because if what's important to me is all the way in the bottom and I don't make it, what good is that going to do either of us? And remember, I have my hat on right now. That's your prospect, your customer, if that makes sense. The other thing with search engine optimization is, keep in mind, even though what we do, and I'm speaking to, let's say if we're a dealer or an integrator right now, maybe perhaps we do access control, video surveillance, remote guarding, residential security systems. If I'm interested in remote guarding as an example, I may not necessarily be interested in a traditional alarm system. So why make me have to go through, all of the, through your site to be able to find that? You want to make it really, really easy. And it could be vice versa. So we'll also talk about creating that of a sitemap, a clear sitemap, here in just a sec. The other thing is, when we get to design, and by the way, I'm speaking at more of a high level here with some specific examples, and I'm going to actually show screenshots here in just a few minutes. And also, we're gonna be getting into some detailed things in terms of that sitemap as well. But in terms of the user-centered design, remember, and I cannot stress this enough, I know I've mentioned this already a couple of times, but when it comes to our website, how many of us, once again, type 1 in the chat if you have come across, like in the last 24 hours, I know we come across this every single day. Type 1 in the chat if you come across sites that are all about them. It's not about them. It should be all about your customer. And what are the benefits? So I'm going to start this off, 1 in the chat, because I come across this every single day. It's not about us. Remember, it's all about them being our customers. So awesome. I appreciate everyone engaging with it here. We want to make sure, once again, I talked about this, so I'll quickly breeze through this. We want to make sure that we have this intuitive navigation so that it's easy for our customers to find what they're looking for. And it's important to make sure that what we are doing is we're prioritizing their user experience, period. In terms of like the branding and visual identity, it's super important to make sure that when we position ourselves, and this is more so from that, and mind you, this also holds true for that of manufacturers and service providers as well. But it's super important to make sure that like our branding, our value prop, it's crystal clear what we do and who we are, how we impact, what the challenges that we solve. And I know this stuff goes without saying. And I'm not going to ask a question because I really appreciate everyone being, and I feel like I'm a little behind schedule here, but like many times that I've come across visiting a website versus having a conversation with someone, it's as if I'm speaking with two different groups. And I know, I'm sure, awesome. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. It's it's all about what Jason just said. And it's literally in that order. And we have to keep things really, really simple. But it's so important to make sure that we have consistency, not just with what we're saying, so to speak, with our prospects, but across our website and our entire digital marketing footprint. We want to make sure that there's consistency with all the visual elements in terms of like our logo, our color schemes, our visuals. We want to make sure that it's so important to make sure that we're setting our business apart in terms of like our website. And you'll see here, this happens to be like a desktop, of course, a laptop, a tablet, and that of a mobile. It is so important to almost be mobile first. And it's interesting how when we take a look at data here with the groups that we work with, it's interesting to see when we go back to, for example, when this happened, this is my ISC West badge from 2011. That's when we started just a couple of weeks prior to that. To today, when we were to take a look at data and analytics of users that are accessing your website on desktop versus the mobile phone, it's just been like this. And in some cases, mobile phone website traffic is actually surpassed. So it is so important to make sure that each and every single one of us, that our website is built in a responsive fashion, so that regardless as to the device, we're able to make sure that that the user experience, because remember, I'm going to go back to this. It is all about prioritizing your customer's user experience. So in terms of content, and we spoke about this briefly, and we're going to get to the sitemap here and talk about some of these things and showcase a few examples of different landing pages and things in that regard. But it's super important to make sure that we have the various segments that are based on that of the different end user, or in the channel, or if you're a vendor, with that of the groups that you work with. Because keep in mind, Lenny, thank you so much. So for those of you that aren't paying attention to your chat, so Lenny just stated that 70% of your traffic is coming from mobile. Like, by the way, remember I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you are managing your own marketing, or you've got another group that you're working with and you don't know this, or they don't know this, one of the things you're going to want to jot down right now is what percentage of your website traffic is coming from mobile versus that of like the desktop or tablet. That's one of the homework assignments I'd like to assign to each and every single one of you. And by the way, if you'd like to share this on LinkedIn, please tag me and I'll engage with you on this. But yeah, in terms of sharing this, sharing this information, but like that's a staggering number. Think about it: 7 out of 10, or 3.5 out of 5 web users are coming from a mobile device. And by the way, 1A or 1B to that piece of homework is on your mobile device. Take a look at your website on your mobile device, and how does it appearing? What's the user experience? Things in this regard. So we want to make sure that we're creating the segments of content and things in that regard. When we say we want to address that of the local security concerns, keep in mind, we've got individuals from all over the world here. We've got a few individuals from out of the country, but most are here domestically, anywhere from the East Coast to here in the West Coast to where it is that we are. And with that said, as we all know, for those of us that have done extensive traveling throughout the country, when you take into consideration individuals from, let's just say, New York versus San Francisco versus Los Angeles versus somewhere in the South, it's like the mindset, even though what we're offering is it may be very same, if not the similar, the mindset of individuals is differently. So we need to make sure that we're speaking to them. When we talk about that of local security concerns, we will also want to make sure that we're, especially for those of us that have a local footprint, we want to make sure that we are personalizing things. Like in terms of content beyond the words, ideally, we are leveraging images on your website that are not just showcasing like local landmarks, but also showcasing your vans, showcasing your signs, showcasing what matters most, which is your team, your people. That's part of what separates you. It's part of our, our intellectual property, our IP, our company IP, and what separates us from others. And the reason being is we want to really make sure that we build authority. For those of you that were in the previous webinar, the webinar number one of the things I'll just quickly talk about for about 10, 20 seconds is in market versus out of market. And we take into consideration in market, these are prospects or existing customers that are currently in market to purchase your service. They just may or may not know who you are. Whereas 95% in a traditional market are not in market. And in other words, meaning they're not actively searching for what you're looking for. And that's the key here. We've got to build authority. So when they matriculate from out of market to in market, hopefully it's as a result of what we're doing, right? If that makes sense, because we're getting them. And then what happens is they know, like, and trust us. And keep in mind, your customers, especially on the commercial side, they cannot afford to get things done. They can't afford not to get things done right the first time. So it's so critically important with all of our content. And that includes all the video, all of the text, all the copy, the graphics. And keep in mind, it has to be segmented and things in that regard. It helps with that. Interesting. Jason says 38%. It's interesting how when we take into consideration that of the differences, like one of the things, I'm not to get too deep in the weeds here, but when we are working with like a systems integrator that has an end user that typically, believe it or not, is going to be behind their desk a lot of the time, well, guess what? Their desktop traffic percentage-wise is going to be much higher. Whereas let's just say Linny, and as an example, I believe Linny, you work with both, if my memory serves me correct, and I know that to be the case. What's going to happen is you're going to have more of a mixed bag. You'll have more of a 50-50, and in Linny's case, it's 70%. Awesome. Thank you, Lenny. So no, interesting. So I appreciate everyone sharing this. Let's see here. Matt's stating, I expect my website to be fully optimized by the end of the year when I know that. Awesome. Matt, please keep me in touch. I'd love to learn more about your journey with that. And look, we all have to be striving for greatness, including myself. When I combine, wow. I don't know if everyone just saw what Lenny said. In the last 12 months, when she combines mobile and tablet, over 90% of her website traffic. So think about that. If you're putting 90% of your efforts into the desktop version, but only 10% of your users are accessing it, don't you think that may be a little bit backwards? We'll move on here. I'm not going to spend too much time on search engine optimization because we're going to actually have an upcoming class specifically about SEO. But the bottom line is when you have this fully optimized website, it's going to ensure that we are helping with that of our search engine optimization. Because the key here is when we search, I know that there's ChatGPT, AI, all the other search engines, Bing has been taking strides, but remember, Google's still the lion's share of search today. And we want to make sure that we are appearing in the search results specifically within the areas, whether we serve nationally or we serve locally. We want to make sure that we're showing up in the results. And keep in mind that, part of the pages that need to be built are going to be that of, some of the city-specific pages that we do and with the services that we provide, because that will help with that of search engine optimization. But that's something we're going to get into when we discuss this masterclass. And it's super important that we're present for the in-market opportunities, if that makes sense. So let's talk about building trust, right? In terms of building trust, it is super, super important to ensure that we are receiving that of the trust of our users. Because remember, as easy as it was to go in, it's easy to click that back button or to close the window, if that makes sense. So it's, one of the key ingredients is to build trust on your website. And how do we go about doing that? Well, there's via a few ways. This is a couple of the ways, and there's going to be another few ways that I'll share here in just a moment. But testimonials and reviews. I personally don't like to use the word testimonials because I feel like that's rehearsed. But like in terms of reviews or client success stories, or what about the phrase, what our customers have to say, or why our customers buy from us, things in this regard. We want to make it sound real, authentic. It's so important to make sure that we have that social proof, because remember, just because we don't make buying decisions based off of reviews from others. Many of our customers do. And I'm not going to say it's 90 or 100%, but it's a large percentage of them. And the one thing that we want to do is everything that's within our control, we want to make sure we're on top of. So off of our website, which I know we're not speaking about that, but whether it's Google Business Profile, all the other review sites, we want to make sure that we have those claimed. We want to make sure that we're soliciting reviews. But what we want to do is we want to generate those 5-star reviews. And we want to make sure that those 5-star reviews are listed on our site. We're going to get to the sitemap here. And there's, of course, you can have a page dedicated to this, but I'd also recommend, even on your homepage, to have a section that showcases, 2, 3, 4 of the reviews of your site. And ideally, if you even have a picture of them or a logo, if there happen to be businesses, and it's sharing their experience with you. And oh, by the way, these things can be pulled from your review sites, and or you can solicit them very, very easily. And by the way, for bonus points, if you want to take things even a step further, which when we do a masterclass on reviews, we'll dig deep into this. But whether you're utilizing this device here or you have more of a fancy setup with like the camera that I happen to be using for today's Zoom session, you can interview style that of your customers and have them share their experience as more of a use case study. So ensure that you're establishing and building trust with that of reviews and your customers' experience. One of the other ways is to showcase certifications or showcase that of the certifications, the associations that you belong to, and any of the awards that you've generated and things in that regard. So in terms of this, we want to make sure that so keep in mind, you may be certified in particular technology partners, as an example, or certified in X, Y, or Z. We want to make sure that we're leveraging all these things, because if somebody comes on board, we want to make sure that they are that we are positioning ourselves into that of the authority. And I know that I feel like I am. I want to speed things up a little bit, just because I want to spend the lion's share of our time on sitemap and some of the specific pages. But in terms of analytics and tracking tools, I talked about this a little earlier, but these 4 things are incredibly important. Putting the Google Analytics code, Google Search Console, the Google Analytics is going to help you more so with that of the numbers, so that we know who's on our website, where they're coming through, what's their flow, what are the pages they're leaving on, who's actively on our website real time, what mobile devices where Lenny got her data from. She got that from her Google Analytics, but Google Search Console, on the other hand, that speaks to that of more from the search engine optimization perspective. So as you log into your Google Search Console, that will let you know what are all of the keywords that you're showing up for, what are the rankings, how is that changing over time, what's the traffic you're receiving from those, etc. In terms of LinkedIn Pixel, Facebook Pixel, this will give you more demographic-based things. So LinkedIn and Facebook will also give you quantity, the quantitative numbers. But what LinkedIn will also do is it'll also let you know. By the way, Google Analytics will let you know geography as well. LinkedIn and Facebook will let you know geographically where they're coming from. But what LinkedIn will also do is LinkedIn will let you know what industries they're in, what are their titles, and many other demographics and things in that regard. By the way, all 4 of these have no cost. You can get these uploaded to your website at no cost. And by the way, for those of you that are live, if any of you need help with getting any of these pixels on your website, a little later, I'm going to share Paul's information with you. I would be happy to put 1 or all 4 of these on your website at no cost. No strings attached, period, if you need help with this. Also, if you need help with interpreting these things, we can discuss this as well. So let me keep moving on really quickly. And I'm going to just quickly touch base with this because we're about to get to some really good stuff here in just a sec. It's important to make sure that we're focused on that of security and privacy. And mind you, keep in mind like your SSL, because if you don't have an SSL on your website, Google is going to say, your website is not secure, and that's a bad thing. You do not want that. You want to make sure, and not everyone has their website built on WordPress, but if your website's built on WordPress, we want to ensure that the security updates are, in other words, the version of WordPress is updated whenever a new version comes in within a reasonable amount of time, and also the plugins that are powering your website. The reason being is, most of the time, many of the times that these things are updated, it's updated for security reasons to make sure that it would be the equivalent of like leaving your valuables in plain sight in your locked car that could easily be punched through and someone could take things. The other thing is if you want to take things like, and I'm not going to ask anyone, but like if you've, in our industry, there have been websites that have been hacked and taken over and, have pages on them. And because we've had to actually help fix some of these. If you want to take things even a step further, there's ways for you to put specialized firewalls. I know we're not getting into too much detail here, but there's ways to have firewalls to basically block certain individuals from coming to your site and things in that regard. The other thing that I want to talk about really quickly is data privacy. And it goes without saying, it's super, super important to make sure that you're safeguarding that of your customer data. For those of us that have certain thresholds in terms of, which most of us are not going to have that thresholds in terms of the GDPR stuff, whether it's the number of users that we have coming to our website or if we're selling internationally, we want to ensure that that we're adhering to this in terms of our data privacy. And the CCPA is here for more so in California, or if you have customers in California. But we want to make sure that you have secure storage and transmission of that of sensitive information. And you want to make sure that you're transparent with that of how you handle data. So this also, by the way, this includes that of like when you have form submissions and things in that regard. And that has to do with your privacy policy. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick step of water. Are you following me so far? If you don't mind, while I take a sip of water, hit yes in the chat, just to make sure I didn't put everyone to sleep. By the way, have I told you all that you are officially awesome? I really, really, really sincerely appreciate you spending time with me today and for being interactive. And Hank, man, my friend, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate everyone's feedback as we're in this together. So what I've created here, and I know this may be a little small to see, but there's a whole heck of a lot of things here. And this is from the perspective of whether you're a dealer or an integrator. If you're a technology partner, I'm going to just verbally share a few things here in just a sec. But let's just say, for example, let's say that we're a security company that offers at least 55 to 60% commercial and the balance residential. Then this is kind of the way that we would want to have things up here. And by the way, there are going to be other main headers and things in that regard. But keep in mind, it's like for us, like when we're building out a site, before we design the homepage, before we design an inner page, before we design, before we create content, we talk about that of the flow chart, which is more of the sitemap. In other words, what are all the things that we do? And keep in mind, if you imagine that of a website, if you imagine that of your website, these would all be linked, things that you hover over, and then you'd have the drop downs below that with that of the things. And you'll notice here in vertical, technically it's not going to be like this, and all of you are not going to service all of these, but I just wanted to reference each of these things. So when you take into consideration commercial, think about all of the things that you do. And by the way, there are going to be more than this, because you may even deal with like emergency notification systems or active shooter as an example. But like the traditional ones are going to be like the big 4 or 5 are going to be access control, intrusion, video surveillance, fire, and remote guarding, right? Those are going to be like the big 5 things that we're going to be doing. And remote guarding is going to be that of like a specialized type of video monitoring. So maybe you do video verification, remote guarding, or like a proactive video monitoring as an example. In terms of the fire, by the way, there could be subsets because you may be a fire integrator, so to speak, and you deal with like kitchen hood and that of fire inspections, that of extinguishers. So in terms of these things, like in each of these pages, we want to make sure that it's crystal clear, not necessarily just about what access control is, but we want to talk about. See, keep in mind some of the things that we're doing now. Is we are with that of the advancement of technology. It's like even with video surveillance as an example, it goes like the value that we deliver goes beyond video. Like there's business intelligence, there's things that can help with operations, with marketing, etc. But we want to be talking about that of we want to make sure that we're speaking to the real value. And by the way, in terms of creating content or getting assets, your technology partners are going to be great resources for that of helping you with certain content in terms of video, imagery, things in this regard. But also remember, I mentioned a few minutes ago towards the beginning of our session, we want to make sure that we are really incorporating that of local personalized things, including images of our things. In terms of the vertical markets, one of the things that I think I shared this in the initial webinar last month, what we are seeing at a high level, at a macro level, is we are seeing an expansion by narrowing the focus. In other words, if you happen to specialize in vertical markets, create pages for that. And by the way, we're going to speak a little bit more in detail about this. If you want to take a quick snapshot, I'm going to change the slide here in just a sec. But these are the 80-20 rule, the lion's share of the pages that you would want to have on your, oh, thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that. And Lenny, yes, technology, can't live without it. So, these are some of the pages that you want to take into consideration. Like when we get to the about, or like why choose us, or why choose, XYZ security, or what have you. We want to be speaking to that of these pages, and in terms of, about our company's history, discussing our values, things in that regard. In terms of our careers, we're going to share an example of that. Areas we serve. If we happen to have multiple offices with a larger footprint, we want to be speaking to that. We obviously talked about technology partners, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit more in detail here shortly. We talked a little bit about this as well. In terms of resources, I'm going to speak to blog. We want to ensure that we have FAQs. And by the way, having a few seed FAQs and a call to action to your FAQ page on your homepage is not a bad thing either. Like, what are the lion's share of the objectives, the objections, that you have? Like, let's talk about those things up front. Referral program, we're going to speak to that. We talked about reviews. Want to make sure that we have support, and support could be filling out, like, one of the groups that we work with, they have this super lengthy support form, and it makes things really simple. They talk about it during the sales process. They go through that support, and it just helps so that it's easy to understand what the costs are going to be in terms of what that support service ticket's going to be. And then, of course, if you'd like, especially on the Resi and SMB basis, if you serve those end user customers, you can even include all the alarm permits in the jurisdictions or the areas that you service. And then once again, that of locations if you have multiple locations. But let's just get to a few quick examples as we're slowly but surely starting to run out of time here. One of the things that's often overlooked, I do have a quick question for those of us that are especially working with the Resi and SMB market. Would you say over or under? And let's use 50% as a benchmark. So quick question for everyone. Would you say that greater than or less than 50% of the end users that you go into already have an existing system? Like, from what perfect. I appreciate that, Lenny. I'm going to say over/greater. And I have a feeling that most are going to say the same thing. Yes, I'm seeing a number of them that are coming through. And here's the thing. When's the last time you went to a security company's website and talked about, do you have an existing system? Like, not very often. This is one of those times you want to jot this note down. And if you don't have this type of page in your website, we've got to make sure that we get that added to the website. Super important. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, John. Similar thing. John says we have a takeover page. That's the whole point. Whether we refer to, have an existing system, takeover, same thing. It's all about, remember, tiny hinges swing big doors. So it's very important to make sure that we're utilizing the right vernacular. And to me, have an existing system is something that's like, exactly. It's yes, thank you, Lenny, you're right. That's more of an internal, when I say us, meaning it's internal. But yeah, that's exactly the case here. And in all of your marketing, whether it's in your newsletter, in your social media, on your website, so on and so forth, in your ads, we want to be speaking to that, because all of us, we all agree. And I'm sure there's some exceptions to the rule, but we want to make sure that we're speaking to them. So we want to make sure that you have a unique page and you have call to actions that are driving traffic to this. Yeah, there we go. Rip and replace. By the way, one quick thing I'll just state here. Some of the groups that we work with, they have like this, I'm going to make this up, this 21-point inspection. And in some cases, we may rip and replace, as Jason had indicated. In some cases, we may use transistors or the technology to be able to leverage some of the door window sensors, things in that regard. But these are some of the key elements that we want to have on that page. Yep, love that. I love that too, Lenny. Thank you. Technology update. Yeah, that's a big keyword on that. In terms of that is analyze, because remember, all of us that are here, that are watching this live, we're more taking that consultative approach, if that makes sense. So let's keep all these things in mind. Now, in terms of referral program, it is so important to have, I mean, I guess let's type in if you have a formal referral program, type me in the chat, please. And while those of us that are typing, it is so important, if you don't have one, formalize it now and be as aggressive as you can. And look, I realize that many of us may be, selling versus ADT, and it's like, Dave, why do you have the big blue on one of your full disclosure? ADT is not one of our customers. They would never be one of our customers, although we are very good friends with many of the brass at ADT. When you take into consideration ADT, they've got a very rich rewards program. They'll provide you with a $200 rewards card for each time you refer your friends and family. I've seen many referral programs that speak to that of, I'll give 1 or 2 months of free monitoring, or 3 months of free monitoring. I mean, honestly, how much money did that cost you? Like next to nothing. Like be remarkable. One of my good friends, Mike Dove, and I, it's been a while since I've seen you. I don't think that Mike is on today's webinar. From ADS, used to have a referral program that referred to Free for Life. And I'm not going to get into all the gist here, but long story short is, he and I shared the stage with my other good friend, Bob Ryan, a number of years back at ESX. And, the whole session was talking about referral programs. And long story short is, for the traditional monitoring, if you refer 7 new customers, you have free monitoring for life as long as there's 7 or more customers. Oh, by the way, a large percentage of their customers didn't stop at 7; they referred a lot more than that. And my point being here is, whatever you feel comfortable with, or whatever works for you, have it be as remarkable, as easy to remember as possible. And by the way, on your website, you've got to make sure that you have a landing page. And by the way, it needs to be marketed across all of your channels. You have to have a landing page that speaks to exactly what it is. And I don't have one in front of me, but also, by the way, whether it's like a business card or whether it's like a postcard, have that of a printed item for that of your technicians with a QR code, so that they can go to your referral program and make sure it's crystal clear as to what it is. But on the site, it's got to have your contact, meaning the individual that's referring and the individual that they're referring, things in that regard, so that they just make it easy. Got to remove the friction, make it easy for that of your prospects to do business with you and refer to others. In terms of technology partner landing pages, it is so important to have technology partner landing pages on your site, especially for those of us that do commercial end users. So we would have like a section of all your technology partners, and then those could be links that link you to that of these specific pages. These are good friends of ours here, here in the Los Angeles area, and they happen to have a number of technology partner landing pages that have been created for them. This happens to be, I happen to be very good friends with many technology partners. So, but DMP and I are very, very good friends, and our company very, very good friends. So I figured I'd give a little bit of love to our good friends at DMP. But keep in mind, like, what we want to do is we want to position your group as a specialist. We want to make sure that we're leveraging that of content from your technology partners in terms of videos, images, and content. Like, ideally, if you happen to have like a use case or a case study, if it's available, make sure that you're positioning that, because it positions you once again as that of the authority. And also, regardless as to whether you have a use case or not, indicate that of some of the clients that you work with that are utilizing this. Because keep in mind, especially if you're in a geographic area, your customers are going to know these other customers. And it's once again building you as that authority and things in that regard. And we've got to have a strong call to action on that page as well. You'll notice here, there isn't any navigation. The only call to action is right here. And I know I cut that off. I think we made a mistake there in terms of this, to have the form, have you fill out, and also the phone number there. Let's talk about just that of a blog really quickly. So it's so important for you to have a blog that allows you to create content that humanizes you, that positions you as local from and for the community, that has information that's vital, that once again builds you into that authority, into that group that your prospects and current customers, we want to have them know, like, and trust you, so that then when they matriculate from out of market to in market, they come to you. We want to make sure that we have, and by the way, it goes without saying, but depending upon who your customer base is, we want to make sure we have content that's relative to the audience. We want to make sure that we're consistent. Like, let's not just do one and then we wait 2 years and do another. It has to be consistent. Ideally, you're doing it at least once per month, if not a couple to a few to several times per month. We're posting information that's about all these things. And by the way, some of these, this should not just be about security. Remember, people like doing business with friends, individuals they like. Showcase the things that you do. If you're involved in community events, have articles about that, pictures with your team. Maybe you happen to be doing like home shows or things in this regard. Like, this should be in your social media as well as your blog and things in that regard. We want to make sure that with the services that you provide for SEO purposes, we'll go into detail in this in our SEO masterclass. We want to make sure that we are utilizing relevant keywords. We want to make sure that the linking. So, like, for example, if you have a blog that's talking about the state of access control for, let's say, Dallas, as an example, for Dallas commercial end users, we want to make sure that there's a link or links in there that are taking you to the access control page on your site, because it's letting you learn more, as well as obviously to contact us to be able to learn more about, scheduling that of a free evaluation or consultation or what have you. We want to make sure that we're having the visual element. So in this, if it makes sense, whether we have video, graphics, illustrations, or even that of an infographic showcasing how these things work. Because keep in mind, like, many of us are visual learners and things in that regard. We want to make sure that we're also promoting these posts. So if you have blog posts, we want to make sure that you have your social media that's pointing to that of these specific blog posts. We want to encourage comments and engagement, just like the way we're doing here today. Thank you all very much for all of your engagement. We want to make sure that we're engaging others. We want to always analyze, like, what's happening. Like, not all blog posts are going to be created equal. What are the ones that are doing very, very well? What are the ones that aren't? The ones that are and aren't. We want to make sure that we can repurpose old posts or even update them. Sometimes it's not just good just to create new blog posts, but to go back and edit other ones to make improvements based on that of the data. So let's talk about the vertical market landing page. We talked about technology landing pages. This is vertical market. In terms of this, we want to make sure that we are positioning you as that of a specialist. Because remember, you're expanding your reach by narrowing your focus. Because let's just say in this particular case, you're a healthcare end user. And let's just say Lenny, thanks Lenny, I appreciate you allowing me to use you as an example. Let's say Lenny happens to be in charge of security for a transportation or logistics warehouse or number of warehouses. Like, the needs of both of you are going to be very, very different. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're speaking to the intended audience. What are their challenges? Make it crystal clear that you understand what their challenges are and how you have tailored solutions specifically for them. We want to make sure that we have industry specific, not just images here, but we want to make sure we have video, content, illustrations. We want to make sure that we have, if you have them available, we want to make sure that we have a case study or case studies that's demonstrating that you understand what the challenge, how you solved it, and what the result was. We want to make sure that we have logos of industry-specific clients, because once again, that's building trust, building authority. We want to make sure we have a strong call to action. All of these things are incredibly important. And I know that we're coming up against time here, so I'm going to try and get through this in the next couple of minutes. But in terms of careers, I know most of us have, need more help in terms of recruiting and things in this regard. So a couple of things to take into consideration for that of the careers best practices is talk about why, like, what separates you from other, like, not just from other security companies, but from other industries. And by the way, well, that's something that's super, super important. And keep in mind, as an industry, as security companies, we are continuing to shift towards that of more of a technology-based industry, and it's going to be more attractive to others that are outside of the industry. So we want to make sure that we have this why us, and this can be in terms of visuals, this can be in terms of content, all these other things. We want to make sure that we're indicating that of our open positions. We want to showcase what our value prop is. We, of course, want to make sure we have our online form and application. Now, by the way, if you do team building, if you're showing happy, members of your team, highlight that, take selfies, have them on this page, have it on your social media, things in this regard. We want to position ourselves as a company that others want to be a part of. Before I get to that of Q&As, I'd mentioned a couple of minutes ago, first of all, thank you all very, very, very much. If anyone's interested in learning more about our services and scheduling a meeting with Paul and I, this QR code here is an opportunity to schedule a meeting with them. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago that if you need help with any of those analytics, that's something that we will do, no strings attached, at any without any cost. So I'm gonna swap this so hopefully you've scanned the QR code already. And I want to make two quick announcements before we get, and I know we're up against time here, but two quick announcements is October 10th, we're going to be discussing our next masterclass, and this is where we're going to get deep into Google business profiles and the maps section. So keep in mind, on Google, you have the ads, the maps, and then the organic. We're going to be focused on that maps. And by the way, I got to tell you, for the maps, you do not need to be an HTML wizard. You don't have to be like anyone like myself. I don't have the expertise of being able to do all those things. These are all things that I can do, which means each and every single one of you can do this. So please scan the QR code now so that you can RSVP for the next one, which is going to be the masterclass on Google Business Profile. It's going to take place on October 10th at 10 o'clock Pacific and 1 o'clock Eastern. Also, this is now webinar number 2. If you missed webinar number 1, we have a landing page now on our site that takes us to all of the previous webinars. So if you scan this QR code, this will take you to our screen that will allow you to watch all of the previous ones. So within the next, I believe, 1 to 2 days, we'll have this webinar. For those of you that are watching this live, we'll automatically send you a copy of the webinar. For those of you that didn't watch the first one, you can right now go to this page and watch the first webinar, and you'll be able to watch a replay of this one as well. I really, 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 really sincerely appreciate all of your time. I know that we're a little over by a couple minutes, but if anyone has any questions, I know that we were super interactive, and I'm going to stop the share. I know that we were super interactive during today's session, but if anybody has any questions, feel free in the chat or in the Q&A. Star, thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate your feedback. Appreciate everyone's positive feedback. And I don't want to keep everyone much longer. This was a lot of fun for me. As you know, I gave this all I have. What's really helped to fuel my energy is each and every single one of you. So I'm forever grateful. I really look forward to seeing each and every single one of you on the next one. If you have any questions that you think of after the fact, connect with me once again, either on LinkedIn and send me a note. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and also send me a note on LinkedIn, or my email once again is dmorgan@sd.marketing. Until next time, make it a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.